Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Mortal Citizens, a Cities of Sigmar podcast. I hope you're all doing well today, and well, let's get into today and we'll have a chat first of all about why we are making this podcast. Pardon me. So, this podcast will talk mostly about, obviously, Cities of Sigmar. It will talk a lot about all the different factions that are within the army and such, and really talking about like a broad overview of the thing. Me personally, I wanted to make this because I am a big fan of Cities of Sigmar. I've built narrative for a free city. I've been playing with Mixed Order and Free City armies and Scourge Privateers, Duck and Covens, and all that sort of stuff. Previously to the book coming out, Wanderers, even owned a lot of Empire, High Elves, Dark Elves, Wood Elves, all back in fantasy, like early editions as well. This is completely my jam, and I just want to make sure that there's some love going out there for this in particular. A big reason why I like it, I guess. Well, I like the average man. I like the against all odds sort of feel the army and the parts of it all bring. Like, you find this stuff hard to comprehend properly. You find the Mortal Realms hard to comprehend by yourself, and when you're looking through the eyes of a Stormcast or some demigod race that you don't quite understand, like I make it look like it looks the same, and it's a reason why. Like if you've read the Horus Heresy novels, why they don't use like the eyes of like Horus and all the Space Marines in the first few novels. They really make you look through the eyes of the human characters in it. And it gives you that grounding level of like you can see and feel how a human felt in the Great Crusade, and Age of Sigmar does the same thing, like needs the same thing, and it's why the free cities are so important. As my friend Mr. Mephisto says quite a lot, it's probably the most important battle tome lore-wise that we've gotten for Age of Sigmar, and really it's just because it gives us that ground level. We now, like Stormcast, wow, that's a really bad missay. Stormcast and Caradron and all that don't look fantastical unless you have the Cities of Sigmar. They ground the setting and give you somewhere that you can see where you would fit in, and you can feel how all these different races feel. And so I think like it's really important that we have that in Age of Sigmar, and I really enjoy that sort of like against all odds, as I've said before. I really like getting down into the dirty, nitty-gritty sort of stuff, and like I enjoy the old Warhammer Fantasy RPGs for the same reason of like getting into the cities and learning all these little bits and pieces, whether that be first, second, third, or even fourth. Fourth is a great addition, the new one. Shout out to Cubicle 7, they've really been knocking it out of the park with all the roleplay game stuff. And like I'm really looking forward to the Age of Sigmar RPG that Cubicle 7 are also putting out, because it's going to allow us to get a little bit into the sort of underbelly of Age of Sigmar, even though it's looking a little bit more fantastical. You can play a Stormcast and stuff like that, but still cool. And yeah, so I really wanted to make this podcast just so we see that like we can show our love for this amazing faction and all these little armies that are still left over from fantasy, and now they're kicking along in Age of Sigmar, and I think we can make them good. I think we can make this something that everyone can look forward to playing against. So this episode will be a little bit different because I'll be talking about my list as the main topic, and what I'm trying to achieve with the list will be going through, and it'll develop over time, and I'll be letting everyone know how it goes and develops over time. But first we'll go into what like the show is going to be from here on out. So we'll have a topic of the week, or week, month, however, fortnight, day, however long it takes for me to put one of these together. I am a new dad, so they're probably, I try once a week, but probably more once a fortnight, once a month maybe. We'll see how we go. The more demand there is for this, the more I'll try and put them out. So, obviously, topic of the week, it'll be whatever has struck my fancy. If it's something that's really caught on talking about in the groups and such. We'll then do list reviews, and we'll go through list. We'll check out any lists that are going into tournaments and stuff like that. And yeah, or just lists that get posted to the Facebook page if I find someone's found something really cool and interesting. And obviously I'll talk about my own list sort of in this, but I'll have a whole section devoted to that later. And we'll give some discussion, some feedback, criticisms, and try to always be nice and positive. If you're part of any of the Facebook groups I run, you know how I like to be. It's negativity with a purpose. Like, being negative for negative sakes is not going to help anyone, but you can be negative but make a negative a positive, if that makes sense. Constructive criticism in the end, I think, is what I'm trying to say. We'll then look into tournament results, because that directly ties in with like list reviews, so we'll see if people have taken lists that we thought were going to do well and did well, or thought we were going to do bad and they do well as well. And especially if you're going to tournaments and stuff and you have lists, you want them reviewed, or you want to show off what you're doing. And it doesn't matter how silly you think the list is. If it's a 7 Hydra or Steam Tank list, I want to see it. I want to know how you do, and we'll let the world know, and potentially even have you on chatting about your list, chat about your games and that sort of stuff. So that directly goes into there, and we'll have a bit of a discussion over tournament results and stuff, and see how the faction goes overall, where we think it can do better, and like if people are falling into the same traps again and again. From time to time we'll be doing unit spotlights after that, so if something's been doing particularly well in tournaments, we'll sort of take it apart and talk about why it's doing well. And yeah, or things I think people could be using more of and don't, and I really think they can do parts in people's lists. We'll then get into narrative section, my own sort of narrative or Free City narrative, and we'll chat a bit about some narrative stuff every episode. I'm a massive sucker for the narrative. I really enjoy it. I don't know if I just talked about RPGs before. Like, I love the narrative. I love getting down and dirty and learning about why the army is and what it is. We'll then into community narrative. We'll talk a bit about people's own narrative. If you haven't seen on the Cities of Sigmar Facebook group, there is a pinned post where one of the other moderators is compiling everyone's narrative, and we're hoping to make like a little book that we can distribute out to members, so everyone's narrative is there, and people can make pacts with their city, and we can just build a stronger narrative together. I speak English good. We'll then go into Q&A, so if you have questions, thoughts, whatever you want to hear my opinions on, or you want to voice your own opinion as well and get your opinion out there, let me know. Tag me, at me on Twitter, comment on my Facebook posts and stuff like that, or just post in the Facebook group and I'll try and find questions and answer them. And then at the end of every episode we'll talk about my own army progression and personal play experience and what I'm doing, why I'm doing what I'm doing, etc. Because this will be my tournament army going forward. There's no if and or buts. I have all the parts to continuously keep changing up this army to play anything there is. Like I've said, I have wood elves, I have dwarves, I have dark elves, high elves, free guild. I've even got Bretonians and Stormcast. I've got Sylvanet. I've got all the order armies that can be allied in. I've got mercs that can be used, and yeah, I've even got stuff to run. Like I was thinking about it. Probably will paint it up and run the 7 Hydra list at some point soon and get some chat going about that. Whether or not it's any good, I have no idea. Probably not, but we'll chat about it. And so yeah, that's what the show is going to be all about. So yeah, up first we're going to get into the topic of the week. So my list, what I'm trying to do with the list, I'm trying to build a take on all comers Cities of Sigmar list. This is probably not the optimal build of a way to be building a Cities of Sigmar list. I think you can probably get more love out of a Hallow Heart, but I think this is probably one of the better builds. I think this, along with probably Hallow Heart Magic and an Ironwood Arsenal Artillery Battery army, are probably the best picks for armies. They're probably the strongest ones. I mean, time will tell, I think, but it's really early days, so we don't know yet properly. Anyway, so we'll start with how I started building the army, and just the thing that screams out to me is you want to make use of that 6 that like general and his retinue rules and the adjutant and all that sort of stuff. So I went with a general of an anointed and 20 Phoenix Guard as his retinue. He's the general, he makes them battle lines, so that's one of my battle lines covered as well. Phoenix Guard are just solid. It got even better in the new battle tome with the rend on their weapons now. I think we'll see this one quite a bit. An anointed and 20 Phoenix Guard. I have played a game with this list. It was just against one of my friends, Christian, at Maximum Pants on Twitter. Just testing out seeing if he can use his Draconis Serpentis. So it wasn't an optimal list I was playing against, but my army got a tryout and I got to test out some things. Now, he was attacking one of the dragons on the anointed, and that anointed, when he's near those Phoenix Guard and is passing off the hits, can really be a problem to deal with. He was putting like the dragon's jaws and everything into that anointed, and it took like 5 rounds of combat for a dragon to take out a 5 wound hero. He's got a 4-up armor save, he's got a 4-up DPS damage prevention save, for anyone not in with all the jam of Age of Sigmar and all the shots, quick talk and all that sort of stuff. And then the Phoenix Guard past them, you put the damage on the Phoenix Guard and they were on their 4-up as well, so they weren't even dying either. So it's quite a good combo there. Obviously he's my general. I gave him the Blood of the 12, which is a re-roll wound bubble totally within 12 inch of him. Yes, he already gets that on the Phoenix Guard, however the idea, I'm not 100% sold on it now, the idea was to put it in, to hold my Wild Riders back and use them as like a counter-attacking force, and then they can go near the anointed and get the re-roll of wounds, because Wild Riders are solid but the wounds, but we'll get onto that later. And the Phoenix Guard are just solid. Like I said before, you can't really go wrong with them, I don't think. And then he's got the Twin Stone, which is like the 2 artifacts, so you can heal some wounds or do some other stuff. It just seemed like the only artifact. I didn't really have a big pay of attention to it. I was just testing out some artifacts. I'll probably chop and change and have a few decisions on that. And then put a Cogsmith in, because I'm going to have 1 artillery piece in the arm. Excuse me. And so he's paired with a Hellstrom rocket battery. Now I'm just taking 1, but obviously he makes that better. But the Hellstrom, the thing I like about the Hellstrom rocket battery is its ability to take out characters. Now I've get into something else I've got in the army that makes this even better. I do have a Hurricaneum in the army as well, not the Battle Mage, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Hellstrom rocket battery is really good for picking off those 5 wound heroes. So things like Hag Queens or small little Slaanesh heroes and Arch Regents and stuff like that, smaller heroes. Even with the neg 1, because it's getting +1 from the Hurricane, it gets +1 if everyone fires the same, so it's hitting on 4s most of the time against those sort of heroes. And if it gets a couple of wounds through, it can do some damage to them and potentially kill them and take them off the table, and it's a threat. Yeah, like playing against my friend the other day, he purposely put his heroes out of range just because it can kill them straight out, and so it could, and it's got a 36 inch range, so it really makes your threat with it quite good. It's also worth noting that Cogsmith gives it an extra attack and kill and heal D3 wounds on it. And the big change for the Hellstrom is it's now like the Celestar Ballista, where it's a joint profile. It's got a 4-up save, 7 wounds, it's decently survivable. You have to actually put some actual hurt into it to be able to get rid of it. And so that brings me to my last hero choice. I've only got 3 heroes in the army, so we'll see how that goes over time. But that's a Battle Mage, just 1 on foot. So I mentioned the Hurricane before. I was originally thinking Hurricane with the Battle Mage on top, but the spell for the Hurricane's Battle Mage I don't find particularly great. It's just some Mortal Wound Splash. I think I would never use that. I think the actual Battle Mages on foot have some really good spells that they can use. That just makes them a little bit better. whether it's the -1 to hit, like fast protection -1 to hit, or neg bravery, or or Wisdom's wild form +2 to run and charge. I think the battle mage on foot gives you a lot more options. And then obviously the Hurricaneum's in there because you are a shooting army, and the Hurricaneum also sort of itself makes up for not being a wizard because it does some mortal wound splash. But yeah, it's mostly in there to buff other shooting pieces, which then brings me to my next piece, which is I've got a unit of 20 handgunners and a unit of 10 handgunners, and they make up my other battle line. I really like that it's like 10 plus to get the bonus to hit now. It's just much better. It means you can run these smaller units, means you can max out on the rifles. And the rifles are really good because they ignore the lookout cerebral, and they've got like a 30-inch range, I think. Don't at me if I'm wrong, but they've got a long range, and so they actually did quite well, like picking out targets that they wanted to hit and just putting a couple of wounds on them. So that's another 4 splash wounds on characters. Like, it's enough to make your opponent think, oh, that 5 wound character's on 2 wounds left, I can't go near the rifles, because if they hit and wound, they're going to kill them. And they ignore the lookout Sarah, as I said before. And then handguns, like, I think just because you can take the rifle, that makes them better than crossbows. Because it gives you that threat that the crossbows just don't have. Yes, the crossbows get a lot of attacks, and they're probably going to be better against ethereal stuff like Nighthaunt, etc. However, I just think handgunners with a rend are better, personally. I think your quality of shots is better because you can get it with a Hurricaneum nearby. If they don't move, they're 2s to hit and 3s to wound, -1, damage 1, and then Hoklon on top. So that brings me to like that. So then we go into like the 2 parts I like to call hammer and anvil of the army. I've got the hammer and the anvil, obviously. So the hammer is 10 Wild Riders and the anvil is 3 Demigryph Knights. So let's talk about Wild Riders. They're not quite back at the glory days of where they were at 8th. When they were like nigh invincible in 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy, they were fantastic, and there's a reason why I own like 24 of them, 24 or 25 of them. There's a reason why that is a thing. But 10. So they hit on 3s, they wound on 4s, like I said. That's potentially why I've got the Blood of the 12 command ability, holding them back, ready to smash something that hits against my Phoenix Guard wall, or my chaff. We'll get into chaff later. But on the charge, they're Rend 2, Damage 2, and that's really good. They put some hurt down when they charged in the game. So we'll keep an eye on them and see how they perform. But I was quite happy. They're also move 14, which is insane for movement. Meaning, like, you can hold them back for a turn or 2 and then swing them around the flank. Just because they've got such high movement. And yeah, that's my big thing with them. I really like them. And then we bring to the anvil, which is 3 Demigryph Knights. Now, I was contemplating 6, but I think 3 Demigryph Knights is enough, and going on my game, I really do think that's the right decision. They've got a 3-up save now, so they're quite durable. They've got 4 wounds each, so you have to put 4 wounds past them to actually decrease their efficiency. Like, they put out a decent amount of attacks too. The unit of 3 puts out like 18 Rend 1, Damage 1 attacks, and then Mortal Wound Splash on that from the Demigryphs themselves. But the idea with these guys is that they can pin stuff in place. Like, if you put them on the flank or something, they will win that fight. You obviously don't charge head on with 3 Demigryph Knights because you're going to lose. But if you can get them onto like the side of a unit, they'll really do quite well and hold their own really well. Like, if you can't get many attacks into them, they're not gonna be moved. So yeah, that's what I sort of do. Like, and I've used that sort of in the game where I played, where I hit the flank with the Demigryphs. I hit the other side with some Phoenix Guard, and the Wild Riders came in and smashed. Wild Riders do die like flies though. They don't want to be stuck in combats for long, and they also do not want to be getting charged. So I learned that lesson as well. But if you can get that charge and they can do the damage before they go, they're only like 260 points for 10, so it's really, really cheap for the amount of output they put out. And then we'll talk about my 2 Chaffee units. I've got, so at the end of writing the list I had an 80 point spare. I decided to go, so I could take 10 Free Good Guard, but I'd already had all my battle line filled, so I decided to go for 10 Privateers. Now I really like the Scourge Privateers, but that's actually sort of the reason I picked them, but not really. At 80 points you look at Free Good Guard and they've just got combat attacks, so they can't really do much. So when you chaff screen, you push something up 3 inch away to make your opponent have to charge that and the other thing. These guys don't do much because they can't do anything outside of the combat phase or the movement phase. Like me, tired, dad life. So why I went for 10 Privateers is I gave them the hand bows. Now, yes, they hit on 4, hit on 5s, but if they're in range of that Hurricane and within 10 inch and it's just within, not wholly, they hit on 4s and they win on 4s, and they got 2 shots each. Like, it's only 9 inch, but that where you're putting them in chaff range, they're actually going to do their shots. So they're actually going to put like 5 wounds through on average, which is enough to kill a couple of models, or you know. Yeah, and so that's why I chose them. The other one was Dark Riders, and we'll talk. These guys are sort of chaff and sort of maneuverability, and we'll talk about them with alongside the last unit in the army, which is Shadow Warriors. So I could have taken 2 units of Shadow Warriors. However, bit of a drink. Shadow Warriors are really good. Like, if you've ever seen Daughters of Cain players, there's a reason why they always take Canare in their armies. They're just amazing. The ability to drop down whenever, wherever. Obviously outside of 9 inch, the normal restrictions and such. But it forces your opponent to leave units back on objectives. And the Shadow Warriors do the same sort of thing. Except they're 10 models. So even if your opponent leaves something back, the Shadow Warriors are actually a decent threat. They've got Rend 1, if they drop down and cover their 2s and 3s, Rend 1 damage 1 with their bows, they've actually got 2 attacks in combat as well on 3s and 4s, so they can put out some punch. So they're really good. However, they are quite static once you've put them down, and they sort of only go for that one objective that they've been put down on. And so that's why I decided to go a unit of 5 Dark Riders. Because they put out 3 shots each, like 4s and 4s, so they're putting out 15 shots at 4s and 4s, that's okay. They are damage 2 on the charge, no rend though. But, so they can put out some decent, and they can clear some chaff that's hanging around on objectives. They're also move 14 though. Like the Wild Riders, it's insanely good move. And I should go back and mention the Battle Mage. The spell I really like is Wings of Fire, because it makes a unit fly. And so that, on these guys, you've got a 14 inch fly all of a sudden, or 20 inch movement. And they're 5 bodies. And so that was a big reason why I decided to put them in. It's just for a bit more maneuverability. Yes, they're really squishy and they die. However, they did claim me an objective in the game when I played. They did exactly what I wanted them to do. They were just able to react and move where I needed them to be. So yeah, that's pretty much my army. Oh, and last thing, I put the Soul Snare Shackles in there because the army in itself is quite static, and being able to just put something on a flank and was really nice. I didn't actually use it in the game because it was the game how it eventuated, but it's just a nice toolbox spell. I'm potentially thinking of some other stuff, maybe a Palisade or something, but that's as harmful to me with all the shooting I put out. And yeah, so that's the army list. As I said, I played a game of it. I think most things did their job. The Hellstrom didn't really, but he kept his characters out of range, so I guess it did. It made him think about where he put his characters. So it did its job to an extent, I guess. Hurricane was solid, it busted the handgunners quite well. Things I learnt: you really need to be careful where you put your banners, because there were multiple times where I really wanted to remove the banner, but I couldn't, because I needed it. Which I should now start talking about what allegiance and what city I chose, I guess. I chose Hammerhall. Hammerhall has a few really good buffs. I really like the while you're wholly within your own territory, you don't take battle shock. That is really, really strong. It's also got the pile in at the end of the phase. You can attack again while you're within your opponent's territory. So you've got offensive buffs in your opponent's half and defensive buffs in your own half. Really solid stuff. You also roll a dice at the start of every hero phase for every banner you have in the army and get a command point. Now, I only got one spike in this game. I, on average, rolled one for every. I've got 7 banners in the army. I rolled 1 most turns, except one turn where I rolled 4. You don't need this many command points because you're not needing to pass battle shock tests on your own units, and I don't really have the command points to use. So maybe looking at a way I can use those command points. Rerolls to 1 is potentially the way to go for it. Using characters and the generic command ability for reroll 1s in a phase. And the Phoenix, the Anointed making the Phoenix Guard better. But yeah, did pretty well. The Corsairs did pretty well. Dark Riders, as I said before, did well. Demigriffs did well. Wild Riders came in, did well. They died really quick, so I'm a little iffy on them. The Cogsmith did his job. The Battle Mage, Wings of Fire, didn't really get to use it at the moment. And the Anointed did what it did. Thought the list worked well. I need to get some more games in. I probably need to play some better lists and more armies and come back and see how we've gone with that. But that's it for my list. We'll have a quick break and we'll get into the next section. Alright, so let's get into some Q&A, questions and answers, that have been popping up on the Facebook group or been personally asked to me. So, first of all, we're going to look at, well, the reasoning for the squatted models. Why such a vast amount of models from the range were made redundant. And this was actually answered on Warhammer TV the other night by Ben Johnson and Sam Pearson. And it was literally 2 main reasons. Like, yes, okay, GW can never keep stocking all the models for all the time. Some models just have to go away. That is always a thing, and that was always going to be a thing. And another reason is duplicative war scrolls. So we already see this even with the cut down range of things potentially one or the other doing better. So stuff like executioners and great swords, they compare to each other, and there is clearly a more preferred choice, or like Phoenix Guard and Blackguard. There's a more preferred choice in there, and so we're getting that even with like a vastly cut down book. Now, could you imagine executioners, great swords, and Wildwood Rangers, and then you throw in Swordmasters and White Lions into that mix of like just great weapon todding foot troops. Yeah, it's like it sucks that models disappeared, but the reasoning is solid, and you can understand why the decisions were made to get rid of some models. Characters, on the other hand, we're pretty sure it's just they're not plastic. That's literally the character range. That's the answer to that. Like, and I think everyone's sort of past that bit now. I think we're all sort of like, yep, that's how it is, and the book's cool, all the units are cool, the new rules are cool, and we can move forward. Cool. Just get that in there one more time. So I was asked, and it's popped up a few times on the Facebook page, the best range unit for its bang for buck. And for me, and specifically this was not asked to be war machines. For me, it's got to be handgunners. I think you can get them to quite easily hits when you get all the buffs around them, when they don't move, and there's a hurricane nearby, they get hitting on 2s, winning on 3s, -1, damage 1. I know your crossbows are going to pack out more shots, but the handgunners will consistently, and probably do more against like lower armor save stuff, but the handguns will consistently do more wounds. and so, like, yes, okay, they lose out quite hard against things like Nighthaunt with Ethereal and stuff like that, but I still think they're better at what they do than crossbows or dark shards, or scourge privateers, or we won't mention the chat. I would probably say also the Scourge Runner Chariots, but that's not technically a unit, and I don't think what was being asked really about this question. The benefit of handgunners too is they're flat battle lines, so it means you can build the army like they can take up minimum size, and you can build whatever the army you want around that. It's just like 300 points and you're set for your battle line. Another great thing about the handgunners is the Hoplon long rifle. I mentioned this before in my own army list rundown, and it's really good at just putting wounds off, and people are wary about where they go because all of a sudden it's another 2 wounds coming through. It ignores the lookout, sir. Now I've only got 2 in my army, it's 4 wounds splash, but if you've got like all your minimum battle line done, you can have like splash of like 6 wounds, and it's a character dead if they all go through, and they can quite easily go through with like, they'll be on like 2s to hit, 3s to wound, -2 damage 2. It's a real threat. So yeah, for me, handgunners, I think they're pretty good, they're cheap, and they're pure battle line, which is the big thing for me. So next question: can I give an ethereal amulet to Durfu in a living sitting army? No. All the armies are set in the realms, which is cool. I'm actually quite a big fan of this. It enforces the narrative. Like, while I wish in the battle tome there probably was a generic free city, a bit of rules and stuff like that, like you build your own free city, it's cool to see that the cities they've created, you're being forced to play them. And I'm not necessarily a fan of being forced into something, but this is the sort of thing. It's like, no, your city is from the realm of life, you need to take realm of life artifacts. That makes sense. Like, things should make sense in the narrative that are on the table, and like, yes, we can complain about certain things, like in Gristlegore there's narrative, and they built the narrative around Gristlegore and all that like sort of stuff, and you read about Fire Slayers, how tough they are, and they built the narrative, and Fire Slayers are dead tough, and with hordes escaping with loads of magic and escaping bull crap, and so the army's bull crap. No, just kidding. I haven't actually played Skaven an awful lot, to be honest, but anyway, back on topic. No, you need to abide by the narrative. Your free city is set in a realm, nothing outside in that city can have an artifact outside the realm. So the next one, being asked what the best loadout I reckon for demigriffs is. I think this depends on unit size options. I think in 3s your halberds are better, because they're never going to kill something in that. And what I liked using them for when I was playing game is pinning stuff on the flank, like, because it's 12 wounds at a 3-up save, and they put out a decent amount of hurt with those halberds, but they're never going to wipe something out, but they're not supposed to at that size. I think if you're going to invest in like 6, I think the spears are better on the charge, although you are at 4s to wound, so you need to sort of figure out some way to go around that, whether it's the wounding buffs or stuff like that. 4s to wound are a big hit. It's a big difference. So yeah, all in all, if you're going for demigriffs, I think small units, halberds, big units, spears. But with the big units, you need to find some way to buff the wound roll, or get rerolls or something on it. Next one is Anvil Guard. What is my preferred loadout? I haven't actually really put a lot of look into the Anvil Guard, so I'll just pull up their war scroll and let's have a bit of a scroll through the scroll. Anvil Guard. There we go. So I was watching Warhammer TV last night, and Sam Pearson did say like he tried to make it so the units were more equal, and built like they are on the box, so they don't have shields on the halberds and spears anymore. Even though I've got all mine modelled up with that, but you just keep the shields on. It looks cool anyway, so who cares? So you got halberds, spears, or sword and shield. Now, generic rules, you add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this unit with 10 or more models, and add 2 if it's 20 or more. Cool. I'll probably stop right here and mention like how happy I am to see that we're getting just pluses to hit rather than like rerolls. Pluses to hit is just it's so much cleaner, it's so much quicker, it's really good rules writing on this, and Games Workshop should be congratulated on doing this. It's much more fun to play against someone who just gets pluses to hit and rolls once than someone who rerolls everything or rerolls a particular number and then, yeah, pluses to hit all the way. And then you add 1 to save rolls for the parry and block for the sword and shield. So that makes them a 4-up save over the 5-up of the other two. The spears also get a wall of shield, so you add 1 to hit rolls made by 3 good spears that target an enemy unit that made a charge, so you get benefits to being charged. And then the halberds are just a better weapon profile with a 3+ to wound over a 4+ for the other two, and -1 rend as well. The spears also have a 2-inch reach. So yeah, I think this depends on how you're going to use the unit. If you're going offensive with the unit and you're trying to do some damage with some cheap 3 good guard, you want the halberds. I think that is the way to go. Defensively, like, I think the spears are probably as useful as they've ever been. Probably more so, like, they're actually finding a use now, and I think you're actually in a conversation where the spears and swords, you're actually thinking about the options, where before your defensive unit was sword and shield. Spears were also always spears were always that like other option that never got taken, which is sad because spearmen are just cool. So 4, 3, 2. However, it's worth noting with the spears that it's a bit redundant on the rule because it is plus to hit. Like if it was plus to wound or plus to damage or something, it might have been a bit better, but +1 to hit, like they're going down to 3, they're going down to 2s at big units anyway, so if you're going to run spears, you're probably looking at like MSU, defensive screens and stuff like that. They're not really going to do much. I think you're probably better off with a sword and shield. Yeah, spears are probably still, like if you're going big screens, spears are better in the bigger units, but sword and shield for small screens, and halberds for offensive blocks. I think that's how I would do it. I haven't actually played them in games yet, so I'm not entirely set on my decision there. Next up, we've got what is the preferred weapon option for the Freeguild General on Griffin. So he can take either a Sigmar Rune Sword, Sigmar Great Hammer, Freeguild Lance, and can also carry a shield. So he has a shield regardless. So he adds 1 to his save rolls for the shield, so you're always giving him that shield, I think, for a 3-up save. So let's have a look. You can add 1 to run and charge roll if he does not carry a shield though. Okay, so they're giving him something to benefit from not having a shield. That's cool. And the lance has a -2 rend on the charge as well. Cool. So Freeguild Lance is 4 attacks, 3s to hit, 4s to wound, -1 rend, damage 2, and it's -2 on the charge. It's just got 4s to wound. That's the problem here. You're going to have to buff that wound roll. Sigmar Rune Sword, 3s, 4s, -1, damage 2. So it's got an extra attack, but it doesn't get the extra rend on the charge, and it's still 4s to wound. Which means for me, it's like you're getting the least amount of attacks with the Sigmar Great Hammer, 3s, 3s, rend 2, damage D3. You can potentially spike lower, but yeah. I think you're tossing up between the Lance and the Great Hammer. Personally, the Lance is good if you can get the charges off. You could maybe take it without the shield and the Lance to get +1 to run and charge. Be cool. You can add, the Freeguild, you can add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Freeguild units who are hollow within 12 inches of the hero. And add 1 to hit rolls as well. So, yeah, the Lance is looking pretty good, to be honest. You can get +2 to your charge rolls. Yeah, Lance or the hammer for me. Next question. Hellblaster Volley Gun or Hellstrom Rocket Battery, if you have to pick. For me, it's the Hellblaster in how I'm taking them and how I'm writing my list at the moment. And the reason for that is threat range. For me, the Hellstrom Rocket Battery, and it's just a massive threat range. It can almost hit anywhere on the table and be a threat to anything on the table, really. I know the Hellblaster probably packs out more considerable damage output on a consistent basis, the Hellblaster volley gun, but the Hellstrom Rocket Battery just has that threat to snipe off a character that's not looking after itself or just sitting back or doing something sneaky. It really makes your opponent think about where those little characters like Hag Queens and such are going to go. So yeah, for me, it's always going to be the Hellstrom Rocket Battery, hands down, just for threat range, and it makes your opponent think about what they're doing more. Question for Hammerhall's ability, the general retinue, it says a minimum of 5 and maximum 20. Does it mean I can take 20 flagellants to soak up damage from my general? Yes, but I would suggest picking something like better. All that, like, it's the retinue rule is cool, so pick something that goes with your general that he buffs and he continues to stay alive and buff. I think Phoenix Guard and Anointed are the best options for this. And last one, so someone's trying to do a compare of a unit here. So they're looking at units. I'm comparing Drakespawn Knights and Demigryphs. Drakespawns are 170, Demigryphs 180. 10 wounds in a unit of Drakespawn, reroll 1 save, 6 attacks, 3, 4. 3s and 4s, -2, damage 2 on the charge. 10 attacks at 4 and 4. Demigryphs at 12 wounds, so 3. 10 attacks, 3s and 4s, -2, damage 2 on the charge. 9 attacks, 3 3s, -1 mortal wounds on 6s. The Gryphs seem so much better. You're probably not wrong. I think the thing with the Drakespawn is they are more bodies, so that matters somewhat for objectives. I do think Drakespawn is just a little bit too expensive. Knock them back to like 150, and you'd probably see a bit more of them. But yeah, I think Demigryphs are just a better unit at the moment. Although, like I said, Drakespawn have the bodies, and number of models does count for a lot in Age of Sigmar. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes, like, and what it plays out to be. So that's it for Q&A. We'll come back with some more with another section. And we are back. We're looking into a bit of narrative now. So with all the free cities coming out, I thought it'd be a little bit good to look over some of the narrative that we have of the cities that are going to be available in the battle zone. So first of all, we're going to look at Hammerhall, which is the twin-tailed city. As the greatest of the cities of Sigmar, Hammerhall can field seemingly endless regiments of loyal warriors, armed and armoured with the very finest equipment and clad in the twin-tailed city's scarlet, sacred gold and blue. These soldiers march and fight in perfect order, singing hymns of battle as they raise their banners high of the beloved city. The people of Hammerhall are a prideful breed with an esteemed martial tradition. The city's war colleges are amongst the most renowned in Sigmar's empire, training new generations of commanders and generals to carry out the God King's will. Warriors of the twin-tailed city see themselves in the embodiment of divine right of the faithful, and more than once a Hammerhall regiment has refused to withdraw in the face of overwhelming numbers, unwilling to cede the battlefield to the bestial savages of chaos worshipping heathens. So, pretty cool. Anvil Guard is next. A lifetime of fighting back the monstrous megafauna that haunt the jungles and seas of the Charwind coast have fashioned the people of Anvil Guard into hardened frontier survivors. They are well versed in fighting in the most extreme conditions and bound together by a strong tradition, having inherited some of their strange, archaic rituals of the city's founders, the mysterious anvils of the Heldenhammer. From an early age, natives of the city learned to hunt and fight to survive in the lethal winds that surround Anvil Guard. By decree of the city arbiters, all inhabitants of the fighting age must be drilled daily in swordsmanship and archery. For the dangers of the Charwind coast are without number, and Anvil Guard must always be ready to defend itself. Elven privateers and monster hunters add a rugged spine of vanguard troops to the city's armies. These hard-bitten mercenaries provide their centuries of experience in exchange for trade, monopolies, and trapping rights. Grim and humorless folk they may be, but there is little in all the realms that can halt the implacable march of the Anvil Guard regiments. Tempest Eye. None can avoid the gaze of Tempest Eye. The mountaintop city's planar observatories can see past even the most complex illusions and obfuscations, and thus its Aether Guard detachments and allied forces enter battle alert and forewarned. They strike with the precision of a hunting hawk and aim to snatch the eyes and cut the throat of their prey before it can react. Fast-moving infantry and cavalry detachments advance and eliminate key threats upon the battlefield, while flights of Stormcast Eternal Prosecutors, supported by Caradron Overlord privateers, overwhelm the foe with a blistering aerial assault. Tempest Eye has formed a strong bond with the Skyfaring Caradron, who earn considerable profits at the city's bustling ports. The sight of their bulky ironclads appearing on the horizon, the graceful forms of winged Stormcast Eternals flitting between the great spherical engine, having come to be greatly feared by the city's enemies. Whether it is in the skies or on the ground, the armies of Tempest Eye eliminate their foes in a single, lethally precise assault. Hallowheart. Hallowheart is a city infused with magical power, the radiant aura of Akashian magic that emanates from its crystal caverns. From the lowliest foot soldier to the fierce battle mages of the White Fire Court, those who dwell within the city's borders share a lingering fragment of its eldritch energy. This can manifest in many different ways, from strange birthmarks to an excess of unexplainable good fortune. In all cases, this attunement to the flow of magic grants warriors of the city surprising resilience to sorcerous attacks. Spells held at formations of Hallowheart warriors have been known to sputter and disappear before impact, as if breaking against an invisible wall. The fireballs and lightning bolts held by the Hallowheart battle mages suffer no such misfortune. Clusters of heavily armed infantry cluster around the devastatingly powerful wizards, and a wall of grinding metal that thunders forward to exploit gaps in blasted enemy lines. At the head of the charge are often frenzied fire slayers, lending their ashes to the city's great cause in exchange for a portion of its vast gold reserves. The Living City. The Living City stands as a symbol of the great alliance between the people of the God King Sigmar and the Lady Alariel, and the citizens are attuned like few others to the wonders and dangers of nature. From an early age, the wardens of the city learned the artifacts of woodcraft and tracking, mastering the ability to move at pace while leaving barely a sign of their passing. In the depths of the forest and upon the battlefield, the shadows are a powerful ally. Warriors of the Living City pass unseen until the moment they strike, cutting down their prey in pinpoint storm of arrows. Graceful, inhuman forms lead the city's armies to battle. Sylvaneth, separate but always close to their mortal allies, honouring the alliance between Sigmar and Lady Alariel. Though the guardians of the Living City are fine trackers in their own right, they know little of the ancient places of the realms and the primordial paths through the nature that the Everqueen's children still recall. Should battle be joined, the Sylvaneth will willingly lay down their lives alongside humans, Dwarden and elves, sacrificing themselves for the cause of order. Greywater Fastness. The engineers and gunsmiths of Greywater Fastness are some of the finest in all the realms, and its regiments of free-good soldiery, known as Greycaps, wield their masterfully crafted black powder weapons with skill honed by countless hours of firing drills. Enemy armies are left reeling from the punishing artillery bombardments and eye-searing lances of energy from the arcane machineries of the Collegiate. These willfully aggressive and destructive tactics of the city's military commanders have won them few admirers among Sigmar's allies, yet they have been undeniably effective upon the battlefield. These generals believe there is no enemy that can not be quelled by sufficient devastating bombardments. More often than not, they are correct. When the iron-walled guns have quieted and the field ahead is little more than a churned wasteland of smoke, ash and mud, the handgunners advance to finish the task. Those few shell-shocked foes who survived the initial devastation are cut down by ranks of grim-faced soldiers blasted apart by deadly accurate fusillades of musketry. And lastly, the Phoenicium. The Phoenicium is a holy city, sacred to the worshippers of the Phoenix, the god beast venerated by the elves as the avatar of righteous vengeance. The silent, wrathful warriors of the Phoenix Temple are a common sight in the armies of the Phoenicium, and their fearless example has inspired the fellow soldiers to countless acts of bravery and retribution. Having suffered insult, or injury, warriors of Phoenicium will not rest until they are revenged upon the perpetrator. To allow a defeat to remain unanswered is a mark of great shame for any regiment of the city, and many would rather risk death than accept such dishonour. Over the heads of the Phoenicium's gleaming hosts, the flames fire phoenixes whirl and glide, creating iridescent trails in the sky. Swooping down into battle, these noble beasts engulf the foe in streams of cleansing fire. No less devastating are the cavalry charges of the Lions of Sigmar, the stalwart storm host that guards the city of the Earth Phoenix, who crush the enemies of order beneath the claws of their fearsome Dracoth steeds. There you have it. That's the narrative we have so far. I do hope in the future we're going to explore the narrative a lot more of the free cities. I'll probably end up doing some lore videos of the cities, and more lore stuff is something I really want to push as well. So we'll hear more about this, and hopefully this section can become bigger and bigger. Community narrative, we're still putting some stuff together. I will should have some on the next episode for you, some people's community narrative, probably some of my own as well. And we'll talk a little bit about how to go about creating that. So next up for narrative sort of stuff, I want to chat about the free city generator. So this is something you can find on Warhammer Community. You can simply type in on Google free city generator Warhammer Community, or just free city generator, and you'll find this pop up. It's a simple way to create your own free city. So how this goes about, well, first of all, you can roll up your name of your free city. This is probably like the easiest part you can figure out on your own, but if you're really struggling for a name, maybe roll up a few things. You might find something you really like, or just pick two and combine. And so yeah, you can pick your name. It's got a cool little bit here where you can help pick your realm, D33. So it's a D3 and then a D3 again, and it sort of picks your realm for you. It also talks about twin cities, or even mobile cities in there. The size of your city, the inhabitants of your city go through as well, which is really cool. And the inhabitants include lots of different things. However, it's worth noting Seraphon here, although you can't include them in a Cities of Sigmar army, so you might want to ignore that. And then you can go over like distinguishing features, which is really cool. And so you can roll up a certain amount of them that come up, and it can be heaps and heaps of stuff, and we will go through these. So looking at like all the sort of distinguishing features, obviously like it depends on like how big your city was. It tells you how many you should roll up. So we'll have a little bit of talk about like how you can use this to really like build on the narrative of your free city. So the first is your city is underground. Well, city is underground, what does that say to me? It probably means you have Dwarden in the army. So you need someone to have mined out that city, so you probably have some Dwarden. You might have a Fire Slayer hold underneath the city. You can also talk about like what sort of enemies your city potentially fights. So use like some basing or some hatreds or stuff, and building some narrative for this as well. Like it's very likely if you're underground, you're gonna have like Gloom, Spite, Gits, or Skaven as an enemy. A surrounding magical barrier. Well, that to me just says you've got Collegiate Arcane, so you need wizards in your army. Now with that, once again, you can look at like enemies as well for that, and like lots of like magical based enemies like Zinch would be really interesting to see how they feel about this sort of stuff. The magical barrier is like an interesting thing, and it can really like delve into like what part of a realm, what realm you're in, or what part of the realm, or what sort of wizards exist inside your city. Like, is it a fire barrier? Is it ice? Is it a bunch of thorns, or a wall of magical thorns, or something? And that should sort of lend like what realm you're in and what you're trying to do with the city. Is it at one with the realm, or is it against the realm? Like you can sort of think of like Greywater Fastness, how it's got like a giant, no, not Greywater Fast, Hammerhall, sorry, how it's got a giant moat of lava in the realm of Firepart and stuff like that. Notorious Thieves Guild. So thieves, this to me says you probably got like some Scourge Privateers or something in the army, or thieves, or like Shadow Blades, maybe there's Assassin's Guild as well. Master Crafts people with this. So you're looking at like elite troops, and you're looking at like making your armor, like maybe you've got golden armor, or like some really nice like detailed armor in your city. City held aloft by magical means. So this might be floating city or something. Like, you can go nuts with this one. Really, I think you've got a lot of options with like city held aloft by magical means. Is it on the back of like some creature or something maybe? A great armory, and this is like lends to grave on fastness, like just artillery and that sort of stuff. College of Magic, we sort of mentioned, like this probably goes well with like the surrounding magical barrier stuff we mentioned before. So obviously trying to pack some wizards into that force. Renowned and gunnery school, once again going together with the great armory. Stormcast Eternal Stormkeep, so maybe picking a Stormhost, whether one of your own or maybe a existing Stormhost like the Hammers of Sigmar or Hallowed Knights helped found your city, or now take host within your city. An Arcane Forge, so magical weapons being forged in your city. That's cool. The next ones are all sort of like different, sort of very specific to factions: the Carriage and Overlords, Trading Port, Scourge Corsairs, Seaport, Darkened Covens, Underground Cult. They will give sort of depth as to why those races might be in your city. A Realm Gate. Realm Gates are cool. It gives your city a reason to be there, of course. Especially if you're a twin city, a Realm Gate's probably important. Or gem deposits. Well, this lends to more Dwarden being there. Site of a great battle, so maybe it was like a battle during the Realm Gate Wars that existed here, and now it's founded upon the battlefield. This could lend to like why there's a Stormkeep there as well. Legendary Library, maybe it's got some vast resources, maybe there's some books that are like from the before the Age of Chaos hit there. Mysterious Ruins. If you've got Seraphon in your city, this is probably a good way to include them. Maybe the ruins are in fact Seraphon. It's had Orc raids upon it, so maybe it's got ways that it deals with Orcs on a regular basis. A sinister reputation, so like Anvil Guard, where it's not exactly the nicest of cities. Monsters Graveyard. So you saw there was a picture in Warcry, in Monsters and Mercenaries, of like this giant beast in the city built around like this giant beast's corpse. That's what you could do with this. You could build like it's inside like the rib cage, built around the rib cage or the skeleton of like some giant monster. Once again, like a Fire Slayer's Lodge, that's pretty self-explanatory. You got Fire Slayers in the city. The Nexus of Magic Powers, this probably combines well with like the surrounding magical barrier and the collegiate if you're really trying to go for that super magical sort of city. Order Serpentis Garrison, notable free guild, huge agricultural bounty, so maybe it's like a really big farm city and it feeds a lot of the realm. Lingering Chaos Catastrophe, so maybe it's got some sort of taint on it. This could go well with like a sinister reputation as to why it is. Massive Mausoleum, this once again like side of a great battle, or and combines well with like the Lingering Chaos Catastrophe. Maybe this is like so many people died in this city. Renowned Observatories and Orreries, this probably goes well if you're like on a mountaintop sort of city, but and probably combines well with Caradron, and still probably combines well with like the College of Magic and that sort of stuff as well. Your civilians are plagued by dreams, so this might go well with like the Lingering Chaos Catastrophe. Perhaps it's like visions of the apocalypse or something your citizens are constantly being exposed to in their dreams. Dispossessed, Sylvaneth, and yeah, just explaining both them being there, and a mysterious plague. So maybe and plague doesn't necessarily mean like boils and rot and all that sort of stuff. Like maybe the plague is the weird dreams, or the plague is like some sort of skin condition that's not lethal, but it just seems to like do something to the skin of everyone. Like their skin goes like rocky eventually. But yeah, this is really cool, and I really recommend going and having a look. If you're not sure on like some narrative for your free city and looking for just like that little bit of a hit to like deal with some colors and stuff like that, you can really use this free city generator to benefit. We'll be right back with after a little break and with the next section and probably the last section. So for our last section, I want to do a bit of community spotlight on our very own moderator on the Facebook page, Ricky Smith. and his City of Midnight, you can see them over there. This is what you can do with Cities of Sigmar. There's a Warhammer community article you can go up and have a look at. It's really great. Like, it shows off stuff from Chris Peach and Ben Johnson themselves as well. But Ricky's really gone like over the top. It's got that AOS 28. I can't remember the name of it. I always forget what the number is. It's like that really dark, grim, sort of grimy sort of look that it has. And this is his City of Midnight. I really do recommend giving a look out. Keep an eye out for all of Ricky's stuff on the Facebook group. It's fantastic. It's inspiring, and yeah. So we'll go a little bit into the narrative. This is just the stuff that Warhammer Community has given us. He's got a heap more. You can read it at the top of the Facebook page, and we'll go into this in a great deal more detail at a later date. But yeah, so there are grim and industrious people who eschew vanity and cultural flamboyance for resilience, exquisite artisan cogwork mechanisms, and practical lethal firearms. The people of Midnight now return to the Alliance of Sigmar. Found in the realm of Ulgu, in a canyon seemingly cleaved of obsidian so pure that its surface has a mirror-like quality that conceals lethal pitfalls on the approach. For miles around the City of Midnight, the ancient edifice of the clock tower appears as though the dagger is piercing the veil of the night sky. Buried in the very heart of the city is an arcane innovation able to predict the precise time that the light of Haish will strike the mirrored valley in which the city has been built. This iridescent cascade rippling off every surface illuminates the only safe passage to the city's iron gates. Once thought lost and abandoned to the shadow beasts that patrol the outer streets, the progress of Midnight continued in workshops buried beneath the ruins, the sentinels of the outer cohorts known only by their jutting silhouettes against a darkened sky. Really, really cool. Probably do a whole episode of Ricky's narrative because it's fantastic. He's got so much stuff. It's so well laid out and written. Full props to you, mate. You set a really high bar on what to expect for narrative. And I will look into this more later at a later date. But this episode's starting to get a bit long in the tooth, so we're going to end it here. Well, that's it for the show. Thank you everyone for joining us today and giving the listen to the first episode of Mortal Citizens. I hope this is something you enjoyed. I hope it can get better and better, and with your help it will get better and better, and we will show everyone just how awesome the Cities of Sigmar are. So without further ado, I'm going to sign off. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. There will be a podcast variant up very soon. Also, if you want to help support the channel in any way, there is a Patreon / Sinful Gaming. And yeah, thank you all for watching. There'll be more of this to come. Hopefully, depending on how well this is received, how much, weekly, fortnightly, monthly. I do have a new baby, as mentioned earlier, so I'll try and get these out as much as I can, and we can get talking about the Cities of Sigmar more and more. Expect some more lore videos to come out. There'll be a lot of lore videos coming out. I really want to help people build up the narrative because this is so much potential in this army for building narrative. But anyway, time to sign off. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you again real soon.